Hey guys, this is Voltage, and welcome to Stellaris Apocalypse. This is the first video I've published in almost a year, but I felt like it would be at least personally entertaining to record a kind of first impressions video of the Apocalypse expansion that was released today. So what I've gone ahead and done is recorded for about an hour and a half, just my first playthrough of the expansion without any commentary, and what I've done here is I've sped up the footage significantly to almost 6 times speed, though not quite because of the limits of Movie Studio Platinum, which is what I'm using to speed things up without getting, as far as I can tell, very visible motion blurs from what I'm doing. So this video footage is literally just my first impressions of the expansion. I'm just playing as, in this video footage, I'm just playing as I normally would. I wasn't commentating while recording, just playing. And I was really just trying to kind of get a hang of the new mechanics in the Stellaris 2.0 patch, because as far as I can tell, nothing that I encountered in my first hour and a half of playthrough is exclusive to the Apocalypse expansion. I think it's all free 2.0 features. As you can see right now in the sped up footage, I'm just basically building my species for my first playthrough. And what I went with was the Fanatic Militarist and Xenophobe ethics, as well as the Life-Seated and Barbaric Despoilers traits. I mean, not traits, civics. Which means that my starting species planet preference is Gaia worlds, regardless of what is shown in the Empire creation screen, because the life-seated civic turns your home world into a size 25 Gaia world, and then Barbaric Despoilers basically turns you into space Vikings, as in, when you're bombarding enemy planets, you can steal population from them. And you also have access to a despoilation war demand, apparently, though I haven't used it yet because of reasons that will become apparent as the footage continues here. So, yeah. While I've been talking here, the footage for the creation of my empire and just kind of my initial playing around with Starbase menus has been playing. And what you can basically see here is just, again, my first impressions of the expansion. I'm playing around with menus here because there are some significant differences from before the 2.0 patch. And then, of course, just stuff that you do at the start of a Stellaris playthrough, like setting your living standards for your primary species as to how you would normally do. Like, for example, if I were playing as materialists, I would usually set my primary species traits to... not traits, rights to academic privileges, so that I'd get an increased science output. The one thing of note here that I can think of with the civics I chose is that I am essentially aiming for a playstyle here of a xenophobe species that essentially can't colonize effectively because I have 0% habitability on all planets that aren't Gaia worlds. So until I get like the Voidborn Ascension perk so that I can build orbital habitats, I can't settle anywhere. So what I essentially have to hope for is heavy orbital construction, allowing me to build up enough military capacity that when I encounter aliens, I can steal some of their pops and then use them to colonize. or potentially build up robots so that I can use those for colonization. I mean, I suppose the other option would be researching the glandular modification technology so that I can modify the climate preference of my species, but I'm not sure how that works with the life-saving trait. Like, if I start gene modding this species, do I just lose the Gaia preference trait? Not that that would be a problem, because that's kind of... It's not a useful habitability trait. All it does is plus 100% habitability on perfect worlds, which in the game's case is Gaia worlds and habitats and ring worlds. Of course, as you can see from the footage here, I just encountered a CyberX anomaly. So theoretically, if I complete that anomaly chain, I will acquire access to a destroyed ring world system, which would potentially allow me to settle on a ring world without having to take the Circle of Life Ascension perk. Though that is kind of a long shot, and if I'm remembering correctly from when I was recording my footage, because, again, post-commentary, as can be seen by the fact that my voice is not synced with the game's footage speed or anything, I only got through like 26 years of the gameplay, and even though I appear to be getting through the tradition trees fairly quickly, due to only having one planet, it's still gonna be a while before I can build megastructures. So what you see here is basically just early game surveying and moving to acquire resources from various orbital systems, try to encounter an alien empire, contacts with Tianki, because that usually is what you would encounter first for spaceborne aliens, and I'm also researching the energy siphon weapon, because I think it's been buffed, looking at the stats for the energy siphon weapon, and in any case, when I hit the button to research it, it was better than the weapons that were currently on my Corvettes. So, yeah, there's literally no reason not to research that, other than, well, consuming my society research. But considering that energy siphon weapons drain shields, and I only have one planet, and therefore very limited industrial capacity, I need whatever early game military advantage I can get, because as soon as I encounter an alien empire, I basically need to steal some of their pops. Of course, then I encounter the enigmatic fortress on that kind of choke point in the hyperlanes. Other feature of the Apocalypse expansion, everyone is stuck using hyperlanes now, because apparently Paradox thinks that will add some more strategy to the game. Which I suppose it does, because the hyperlanes create a sense of genuine geography that can be defended. If everyone has to travel along the hyperlane network, you can actually build choke points. There I discover a naturally formed wormhole, which is an aforementioned... Actually, I didn't mention it before, but one of the few exceptions to hyperlanes. Apparently there's a mid-game technology, or... Actually, I don't really know where it is in the tech tree. I mean, I read the dev diaries, but that was over the span of weeks. But it's an exception, and that'll go to an isolated other point in the galaxy, allowing me to bypass hyperlanes if I were to go through it. But if you look at the hyperlane layout and where I found the enigmatic fortress there, that essentially creates a choke point that my ships can't pass through, because another adjustment to the faster than light thing in the expansion, or actually it's in the patch, I shouldn't say the expansion, is that in order to use a hyperlane, the ship or fleet or whatever has to actually go to the entrance of that hyperlane in order to use it. Meaning, if you were to heavily fortify a system, unlike your border, an enemy empire would need to traipse through that system in order to get through it and fly into your territory. Unfortunately for me at this point, the enigmatic fortress is decisively in my way, and it completely prevents getting across that gap without going a very long ways around, which kind of forces me to just stay in this outer arm of the galaxy because I can't go forward when there's a giant orbital installation stopping me from doing so, without going way out of my way to do so. So what you can see here, essentially, is I'm still surveying planets in my own arm, and then I'm sending my construction ship to various star systems, building a outpost on each star, because I'm required to in order to claim it. Which I'm not sure if that has any impact on Unity output or whatever, but as far as I could tell while playing, building outposts doesn't seem to actually cost anything other than the influence and minerals to build them. And it also is making my border much cleaner than borders were before the expansion was released, so I would say that that's a good adjustment to the border system. The galaxy should look more like a real political map in the future, rather than just a bunch of blobs sitting out in the middle of space, like it did prior to the patch. Granted, I suppose if you were actually dealing with a galactic political map in a real sense, the idea of two-dimensional borders is kind of bizarre, considering a galaxy is just this huge morass of stars in kind of haphazard elevations in regards to each other and just moving about due to gravity. Well, I shouldn't say haphazard because there is an order to what they do, but stars would exist on a three-dimensional plane. There is no up in space. So the idea of flat borders is kind of silly, though for a strategy game like Stellaris, it definitely makes sense. And I think these adjustments to borders, faster than light, that sort of thing, will ultimately lead to an improvement in the game's military aspects, because you should be able to actually fight defensively now, which is a huge improvement to the warfare prior to the patch, where essentially Stellaris' combat, like a lot of Paradox's games, was literally a case of slam your giant fleet, or Doomstack, or whatever you're using, into your enemy's giant fleet, or Doomstack, or whatever it is, and hope yours wins because it's bigger. I mean, there is a bit of variability in these games. Like, in Stellaris' case, you can specialize your ships against your enemy's ships if you want to power game, and you can kind of circumvent your fleet's raw firepower by using weapons or armaments that are specifically counter to them. Like, for example, if you're dealing with the Unbidden, you could throw a bunch of torpedoes into your ship's configurations a few patches ago and completely bypass their shields. Or fighting the Pretheran Scourge, you could spec out with lasers, tachyon lances, that sort of thing, and completely bypass armor, allowing for a smaller fleet to win against a larger one. But yeah, these adjustments to warfare in the new patch should allow for actual defensive fighting, especially because they've severely nerfed fleet cap and created reasons why you would be less incentivized to just have all of your ships in a giant doom stack, which should overall make warfare more strategic. Which I think is overall a good thing.
Construction complete. Anomaly found.
Ah, crap, my monitor just turned off while I was talking because I haven't been clicking the mouse.
Ship refit.
I am at 15 minutes. Okay. Okay, there's probably going to be a bit of repeat footage here because of my kind of ineptitude.
Construction complete.
Yeah, actually, I'll probably just splice this together somehow. I've just made this a mess.
Anomaly found. Construction
Or,
complete.
I guess the other thing I could do here is, well, you can kind of see what I'm doing, and I did not encounter any alien empires yet within my first 26 years of play. So, this is really just me building orbital stations and researching tech and finding cyber anomalies. So, I guess I can cut my commentary here and splice it as appropriate. Okay, in that case, this is Voltage signing off, and enjoy the rest of the footage.
Science Division report success. Science Division reports a new breakthrough. Construction complete. Anomaly found. Construction complete. Construction complete. Recon task completed. Construction complete. Anomaly found. Construction complete. Construction complete. Anomaly found. System process completed. Construction complete. Science Division report success. Taking evasive action. Construction complete. Special project complete. New zero. Construction complete. Fleet action underway. Special project complete. System process completed. Science Division reports a new breakthrough. Science Division reports a new breakthrough. Ship refit. Boundary secured. Construction complete. Construction complete. Construction complete. Science division reports a breakthrough. Construction complete. Construction complete. Recon task completed. Construction complete.